Hey there, it's Pete Thorn. Welcome to another Wednesday Q&A where I answer the questions you asked me by sending me an email to my Facebook music page, which is facebook.com/guitarnerd. If you send me an email there, I will try and get your question in one of these videos. Now, I am really behind on answering questions, so I'm actually going to go fast and try and answer more questions but with shorter answers in this video so I can play some catch up. So the first question comes from Andy Rogers, and he says he's been a fan for a few years and he wants to know if I ever run two amps for a gig, one clean and the other dirty, and what's my setup for this. If you go on YouTube and you watch, it's on my channel as well as on the Sir YouTube, watch my Sir rig rundown that I did with Melissa Etheridge from a theater in Long Beach in like 2011. It's exactly what I was doing for that rig. I was running the Jim Kelly amp, and I had it set kind of clean or on the edge of breakup, and then so that was my clean amp, and then I'd AB over to the Sir SL68 for my dirty sound. So I was doing it via a MIDI AB box that I have on my pedal board. It's made by RJM, excuse me, and it's called the Why Not. And yeah, simply through MIDI you can switch between two different amps. And the Why Not's really cool because it's got transformer isolated output on the B output as well as phase flips. So you can either run one amp, the other amp, or run them both at the same time. And it's got switches to make sure that you don't have any ground loops and that you're in phase. So very cool. So I recommend the Why Not for running two amps for sure. Okay, next question is coming from a fellow named Barry, and he's got a fairly straightforward question about pedals and what order to run them in. So, and what would I suggest? He's got a compressor, a tube screamer type pedal, a chorus, and a delay. He's running everything in front of the amp. I would recommend the compressor first always, because compressors create noise. They lift your noise floor up. No matter what, all compressors do that. So yeah, run the compressor first in line so that if you run an overdrive into a compressor, overdrives create noise. The compressor will lift that noise floor and you'll get tons of noise. So yeah, compressor first, then your tube screamer type overdrive next. After that, I would run the chorus and then run the delay last. That would be a typical order for those types of pedals. Okay, Jake Francis wants to know, he says he's a fan and he watched my Eruption tutorial a ton of times to learn some Van Halen. He's been wanting to start to become his own guitarist and write his own music, and was wondering, do I have any advice? Anything that could kind of guide for the future? As far as writing songs go, well, off the top of my head, learn lots of cool songs by, you know, bands that you're totally into, so that you've got kind of a basis, like influences to draw from. There's nothing wrong with doing that. And you know, for me it was the Who and the Beatles and Led Zeppelin and AC/DC and Van Halen and bands like that, and I played all that music and kind of it became a part of my musical DNA, and then whatever I write now is, you know, comes out as a result, I guess. But my other advice would be to write to grooves. So put on like a drum groove. You can use a simple program, like say you've got GarageBand or something, there's drum grooves in there. You can put up some of those and just write to them and try and write at different tempos with different grooves and different feels. You'll find many times that songwriters tend to get stuck into certain grooves and feels and certain tempos. And I find that all the time, especially novice songwriters or people that are just starting out writing. They'll sort of do the same thing over and over again with their writing. Make sure this isn't in the way. Yeah, so that's something you want to avoid. You know, I think it's really important to write to, you know, put on some rhythms that you might never, you know, normally think that you would write to, and it'll influence your guitar playing and make you write in different ways. Always record yourself. That's the other thing. I use the iPhone religiously, like for recording ideas. I've got the little recorder in there, so you come up with something and just turn on the recorder and get it down, because you're not going to remember it later. So that's another thing. You think you will, be like, oh, that's really good, I'll remember it. You never do. Okay, next question. I'm not sure how to pronounce this person's name. I'm sorry, it's spelled P-A-S-I. Passy? I'm not sure. But he wants to know about tube amps in the 15 to 30 watt range. Do I have any favorites? Nice warm sounding tube amps. He's been looking at AC15 hand wired. I have one of those. I think it's a great little amp. You know, other amps I have that are small are like the Sir Badger 30 and Badger 18. And they're nice small format heads. They sound really great. Very, very versatile. I always like the sort of trusty old deluxe reverb. You know, when I record in the studio many times for sessions and stuff in the past, I've used an AC30 and a deluxe reverb, and sometimes both of them together. But I always like having those two amps in the studio. You know, kind of can't go wrong with those. Even a Princeton reverb is a nice amp too for a small amp. The Sir Bella, fantastic amp. It's more in power. It's like more around 40 watts, but you can switch it down to 22 watts. What a beautiful sounding amp that is. I've got a demo of that on YouTube. Really gorgeous sounding amp. Still quite portable, and you can use it with pedals and stuff. Takes pedals just great, and so I would highly recommend that one as well. Aaron wants to know about how I've wired up my heads in my studio so that I can quickly record with them. He's wondering if I patch them manually every time. The answer is yes, I actually do. I don't even have, I used to have a thing where I got speaker cables coming out of the heads and was going to this patch bay. Now I just have a speaker cable loose and I just run it into the back of the amp. It's not really that big of a deal to me. It's relatively simple. Having said that, I'm pretty jealous of Tim Pierce's setup where he's got this head switcher and can instantly switch between amps really, really quickly. That's a very, very cool thing. So maybe one of these days I'll get into something like that. But yeah, I don't have anything like that yet. For now, it's just me manually grabbing a speaker cable and going from amp to amp. Still relatively quick, I think. Okay, Dave Fogel's got a UA Apollo interface, and he wants to know what high gain plugins for the UAD platform do I recommend, and also what's my go-to kind of mic preamp channel strip for guitar. Well, the mic preamp channel strip I would probably use for guitar would be the 1073. I just love the good old Neve 1073 thing. I've used them a little bit actually just in the Unison preamp slot of UA console, and they sound great to me. So yeah, I'd recommend that. And as far as the plugins go, for high gain, I've had good success with the Angle one, the 765 I think it is, but the Friedman Dirty Shirley, Friedman BE100, and also the Marshall amp plugins, the new like Jubilee, and those are made by Softtube, or designed by Softtube. The Jubilee and the Plexi's cool too. Probably for higher gain, I would say the Jubilee and or the 2203 Marshall plugins are really, really nice. Andy Dawson wonders, have I used any other interfaces besides UA, like PreSonus or Focusrite? Yeah, actually I started with a PreSonus Pre. That was my first, well, I guess an M-Box was the very first sort of thing that I got when I moved into the digital recording world way back many years ago. But then I got a PreSonus unit. It was great. I used it for a number of years. It worked really well. A really beefy headphone output on it. I remember that. Like, actually, some of my tracks on Guitar Nerd were recorded through that PreSonus thing. That's all I had, like at the beginning, and some of those tracks actually made it on the record. So that's good stuff. Apogee makes great stuff. Big fan of the Apogee stuff as well. Kind of hard to go wrong. I mean, if you got an Apogee Duet or a UA Apollo Twin, or their bigger interfaces as well. It's all good stuff these days. Really, really well made. So Andrew Meadows has a question about how I used the sixth interval when soloing, and he says, the sliding country kind of sound. He's trouble figuring out how you fit it in with chord changes. Right, if you're in, say, the key of A with like an A7 chord, you can slide up there into kind of the 10th position, playing the A on the B string, and then D flat note on the 4th string, right? And then you can do that kind of like, right? And so you're just kind of playing the notes of the scale, but in that interval that's spread across the two strings. One cool kind of lick that you can do is like, play the 4th string and then the 2nd string at the 10th fret and pull off to the open 2nd string and just kind of do that in every position. So you'd be like, that kind of thing, and that's kind of a cool way to use them. Pretty neat sound. Take it all the way up to the 14th fret if you want. And I'm like hybrid picking that, so. And you can kind of like move chromatically, but hitting all the target notes in the right key. Okay, Carlos brings up an interesting point here. He wants to know if I could use amps like the Fender Hot Rod Deluxe or PD Classic 50 in my videos to demo pedals more. He says he'd love to have PT100, but can't afford an amp like that, and wants a sort of a more typical amp. Well, to be honest, so sometimes I use my Bassman in videos, which is an old 66 Bassman head. Couldn't be more simple. It's a volume, a bass, and a tone on that amp. A straight up Fender clean circuit, and I bought that amp for $300. So I do use a cheap amp in my videos a lot. That's the way I see it. And I sometimes use my Vox AC15, which is also just a simple combo amp that you can buy anywhere. Now, regarding the PT100 clean channel, which is what I play through a lot for videos, especially if I'm doing an overdrive or a fuzz or a distortion pedal, I'll play through the PT100 channel 1 set clean. And I feel like it's an excellent clean platform and representation that's going to translate well across, sort of a lot of different amps. Like, it's going to give you a good idea of what the pedal sounds like. And the reason is this: it's basically an American clean channel that's derived from like a Fender twin style circuit. That's really the lineage of that. So yes, it sounds excellent, but you plug a pedal into my PT100 clean channel, or you plug it into a Hot Rod Deluxe, you're going to get a similar result out of the pedal, is my point. So it's a circuit is a circuit is a circuit, and the clean circuit in that amp is basically just a straight up optimized Fendery sort of clean channel. So I don't really feel like it's going to be deceptive, or like you're not going to understand what the pedal sounds like when I plug into it. I feel like it's a great sort of middle ground, common denominator tone that I use. Carl asks a similar question that I've gotten recently in my other videos. He wants to know, he's self-taught, he says he knows like scales and modes and stuff, but he wants to expand his musical mind, and he wants to know how to think about what he wants to play as he do. I think he just wants to kind of expand when it comes to improvising and stuff. Me too. Some of these guys I've been hanging out with lately, like Oz Noy or these types of players, who's just like, Jesus, that they're, I mean, light years beyond my capacity of thinking like when I play. But my suggestion would be to seek out a great jazz guitar teacher in your hood, and say, look, I'm coming from maybe more of a rock or rock blues sort of bass place. I want to expand my horizons a little bit when it comes to improvising. Can you show me how to do that? And you can always seek out instruction on YouTube or online as well for a similar thing. But the reality is, I think what you want to do is expand your phrasing, your harmonic knowledge, and stuff like that. So you need to maybe push the boundaries a little bit with the music that you're listening to and with the types of licks you're learning, and that sort of thing. So maybe just seek out a good local instructor. Okay, Fyodor asks, he's got a Les Paul, and it's got burstbuckers in it. You can split the coils on the pickups in this particular type of guitar. It's a traditional Pro Les Paul. And he says he plays heavy blues, rock, metal, and some lighter lyric music that requires good clean tones. What Sir humbuckers do I recommend to replace the stock pickups? Well, it's tough when you got a pretty wide range there with the metal and the clean tones and everything. You might want to investigate my pickups, I would say, which is the Sir Thornbuckers. If you're playing like really heavy metal and stuff like that, you might want maybe a slightly more powerful bridge pickup. It just depends. So it could be a thing where maybe you get a Thornbucker neck pickup, which has really wonderful clean sound, and then maybe balance it out with something like an SSH in the bridge. You can do that. And I've never tried that combo myself, but it would probably sound really cool. I really like the SSH because it's an around 10K sort of output pickup, so it's not too over the top. Still, sounds good clean. You can roll it back to like 8 on the volume and it'll clean up. But it's got, a little more punch and stuff like that if you're playing metal. I don't like really high output pickups. I'm not a fan of them. So if you want to play clean at all, in my mind, you got to stay below like like a Duncan JB or something like that. Is too hot for me. Personally, I don't think you can get clean with them. They do sound cool when you pile on the gain and everything. You get all that mid-range and harmonics and sustain and stuff, but try and play clean, it's not going to happen. So, Maybe Thornbucker. We've just brought out the Thornbucker Plus too, which is a slightly hotter version of the regular Thornbucker bridge. So that's an option to consider. But Yeah, maybe you want to consider an SSH in the bridge and a Thornbucker in the neck. I think that might work really well for you for the huge wide range of styles that you mentioned. Okay, last question for today. Mike wants to know how is the best way to stereoize a mono guitar signal? He doesn't mean recording a pair of amps onto two separate tracks and panning or delaying one of the tracks or anything like that. He's like, you got a mono track. How do you get a good stereo thing happening with that? Well, there's a couple different ways to do it. It depends just how stereo you want to get. I mean, just adding a simple stereo delay to a track like that can add a nice sort of stereo effect. I mean, even like, you know, if it's a solo or something, adding like a 250 milliseconds on one side and 500 on the other side, just blending that in a bit can, you know, widen it out and give it some ambience and stuff, and that's a nice way to go. You can also go with shorter delays, like maybe have like a you know, 20 to 30 milliseconds on one side and 30 or 40 on the other side, and only one repeat. Bring that in, and that'll do a widening, stereo thickening kind of thing as well. There's always reverb. There's always things like the Eventide H3000, which is famous for doing stuff like that, set to micro pitch where one side's at -9 and the other side is +9, something like that. And that'll fatten up a guitar a la sort of Eddie Van Halen and whatnot in the late 80s, early 90s, that sort of tone. What else? Okay, here's a really cool plugin you can use that not many people know about. It is the UA Precision K Stereo plugin. And what it does is it just kind of stereoizes any mono signal. It'll take the ambience that it finds in the signal and somehow boosts it up and kind of does this stereo thing and makes it sound like you're playing in a room, sort of like a small room, but gives it this widening, thickening kind of thing that sounds very natural and cool. So if you're working on the UA platform at all, check out the K Stereo plugin. That's kind of a cool one too that I use sometimes. And you can use it real subtle too to just kind of widen and thicken a guitar track, give it a bit more life. And you sort of forget it's on, and then when you turn it off, you really notice. It's one of those things. Okay, thanks for watching. Please hit subscribe if you haven't. Come back and see me for more of these Q&A videos real soon. And I am Pete Thorn. Take care.